if you're looking for help finding your target market, your DOT, as Dean Graziosi says, your target segment, your intended market, your target customer, those are all different names for basically people looking for what you have, right? If you're looking for that, this video is going to give you some ideas on how to find that, and I'll even have an example. I'm Kim with Little Biz Resources, and let's dive in. Okay, so the one thing that I hear all the time, is that when they're trying to find their target segment, this is especially true with the discussion around the DOT with Dean Graziosi. Now, he teaches a little bit different, but this does complement what he teaches if you do learn from him. So his idea is that you have this, you're trying to hone in on this specific DOT of people that would fit your product. Now, there's a twofold element to that. One is that you can create a product specifically to target a segment. And so you can choose who you want to target and then say, okay, I'm going to build my product for that audience. Okay. The other way you can do it is if you already have a product, you can identify a segment and then you would tweak your marketing to that segment. And let me show you why. So here on the left side, you have this DOT. Now, I put people who like whatever I offer, right? I hear that a lot, right? And in fact, I saw this earlier today on a training where somebody said, my DOT is people who like, and then they explained what their product is. And it was, they're helping people do something. And I'm like, I get that's where people are coming from, but who are those people, right? Who are those people? So you say people who want this, and that doesn't help because you need to figure out who the people are that you're targeting. And again, you can either choose somebody to target and build your materials towards that, or if you already have something, you can identify the most likely target, the most likely segment, and then you can just adapt your marketing materials for that. And it's important that you understand that there's a correlation between your marketing materials and your presentation of it and your target segment, your customer segment, whatever you want to call it, right? Now, here on the left side is the DOT, and this is where I'll show this in just a minute on how this works. But let's look at this one here. Now, this represents pretty much all people, so we've got men on the left side, women on the right side. I didn't put income on here because it would just clutter this more than it already is. So you have men on the left side, women on the right side. Now, this color, I know I chose a rainbow just because it was easy to do. Yes, I am aware that Roy G. Biv is 7, not 6, but it works. So these are age ranges, right? 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44. And I already know somebody's going to say, Kim, my product is for everyone. Of course it is. Or your service is for everyone. Of course it is. The problem is not everyone wants or needs what you have. And you think they do. But the reality is that some people either can't afford to buy it, they're not interested in it, it's not something that's really for them right now, right? So maybe 10 years down the road, a year, 6 months, it doesn't matter. But it's for right now, when you're trying to target people, you want to target the people who are the most likely to convert or the most likely to become a customer, become a client, to be that part of that segment that you're targeting. So you're like, but Kim, again, everybody, then that's when you either pick somebody to focus on or you do it like this. And this is where you've got men and women on either side. You've got your age ranges, and I just put a circle here to kind of show you we're going to be try to get inside this, right? So we have age and we have gender and we would have household income, but let's just say that you know that there are some interests that are similar, right? And so ideally, if it ends up being something like this, which again, I do understand that an interest can cover a whole wide range, but this is going to be the targeted, there's a lot of people in that area, right? So let's say that you identified that there's 3 interests. Now you would want to say, oh my gosh, look right here. We've got an age range. It's both men and women, and there's 3 interests here, right? So ideally that would be where you take this is as small as this goes on here. You would put it you go, okay, I'm going to put all my resources here. These are my resources. I'm going to focus my resources where there's the most likely chance of people to make a purchase, opt in, whatever it is, right? So you say, okay, well, that's going to be my target then right there. And the problem with that is you don't always know where that is. So and we have ways to finding that out. We're going to talk about that in a different video, but for now I want you to understand the importance of the dot and tying the two together. Okay, so in this case, I'm just showing you 3 general interests. So let me go ahead and give you some examples now. Now this is, again, I don't know where all of the interests lie on here. So I swear I grouped those. So we're going to still try to get into this circle. And I'm going to do a course for Etsy sellers, okay? Now, let's just assume that this is all Etsy sellers. Now, because again, we've got Etsy, Etsy buyers, Etsy sellers, e-commerce, etc. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But we're going to say there are multiple people who sell on Etsy. There are people who are crafters, right? There are people who do print on demand or bulk. And that's basically those people who, like they design something and then they go over to China and they find a supplier and they have it made and they sell it on Etsy because they were involved in the process. That's one of those, you go, oh, how are people selling jewelry that's not handmade? That's how. Then you've got vintage, which these don't represent real, like where people are or anything. And then you've got supplies, right? So let's say that it would make sense. You go, oh, Kim, you would want to target right here in the middle again. You want to target both men and women, but I don't. I don't, because my product fits specific categories. Additionally, I don't want to deal with vintage at all. Okay, so we've got vintage, crafters, pod, bulk, and supplies. I have a print on demand course, right? I have that. But that's really more for people who don't know what they're selling yet. And my course is geared more towards people who know what they want to sell, but they need help with listing it and figuring out Etsy, right? So supplies is not really going to work because, again, that's not really the whole focus is more on crafters. Vintage, I don't want to deal with. I'm just going to delete them. I do not want to deal with vintage. So I'm deleting vintage. So I've got crafters, print on demand, bulk, and supply. Now again, I have a print on demand course, so that can tie in eventually, but that's not my initial target market. My initial target market, because remember, I only have a little bit of resources here, and these don't necessarily overlap at all. So I'm going to target crafters. The other thing is that I know, based on my current shops, that the crafters that are most likely to need help that I know of are women. Now, that could just be because more women are crafters. I don't know. But I can tell you that based on my shop, my sister's shop, our sales, the people we work with, the information that we've gathered, that there is a need in the crafting, so handmade, if you will, side for women. Okay, so now you go, okay, so how is this my dot? Let me show you. All right, so this is I'm interested in people who are interested in e-commerce, because, you know, there's a lot of people out there. And there may be a lot of people who want to make money online. I can make another circle that says make money online, right? So instead, I'm like, okay, this is e-commerce. So I've narrowed it down a little bit already to e-commerce. Then I'm going to narrow it even more to just interested in Etsy. Then just interested in selling on Etsy, which kind of is the same thing, but that's showing you how it narrows. Then I want to target women, and then I want to target crafters. Now, I might decide that there's an age range. You know, I might say, hey, you know what? I also know that, well, in fact, I'll show you real quick. This is kind of a sneak peek of one of the tools I'm going to talk about. It's called SimilarWeb. I'm going to do a different video on this. But I can say that Etsy has an age range. And this tool, which again, I'll talk about another time, has just a little bit of information in it. So I can come down here and I can say, well, look, it's obviously female mostly on Etsy, but that doesn't necessarily mean sellers, right? So I'm looking here, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people on here that, oh, Kim, the whole entire spectrum. Yeah, I'm going to knock off 65 plus. Not that I don't want to help people who are 65 plus. It's just that they're not going to be as tech savvy. They're not as interested in online selling and everything else. So I already know that. And look at it's only 6.69%, right? So if I look at these, I'm like, even 55 up, that's kind of low. There's not a lot of people on desktop that are 55 plus that are going on to Etsy. So more than likely, there's not a whole lot of people that are 55 plus selling on Etsy either. So I've already been able to narrow this down to 18 to 54 if I want. But because I know my audience, and I know, and you don't have to know your audience. If you have no idea, you should just start, I would start 25 to 34 then, right? And I'm actually tempted, below 25 tends not to be selling. So 25 to 54, I might even go 25 to 44. Now I'm pushing that, 25. No, I'm pushing that 44 myself, and I'm a seller. So I know there are sellers that are older than me. So I probably would keep it 25 to 54. Now the importance of the age range is especially if you're going to do paid marketing, right? So if you're going to do paid ads anywhere and you can narrow that down so that you're not hitting the 65-year-olds that click on every button for fun, then you're going to be doing good. I can't even tell you the number of times that it's 10 plus years older than me, where they'll be scrolling and they'll accidentally click something, right? Because they just aren't as good with technology as younger kids. You watch my daughter goes through and I'm like, how'd you not click on that? She goes, what do you mean, how'd you not click on that? She's 10 almost. And she's like, yeah, you just do this, this, this. And I'm going, okay, there's definitely a difference between ages and generations, right? So for me, I might be able to narrow this down again to maybe 25 to 54, right? So that might even give me a little bit of a section of this. So that's something that you can keep narrowing this down, and it's just based on the amount of resources, and you might have to test that, right? That's another element that people don't realize, is that there is an element of testing that's involved. Okay, so that's just kind of an example of the dot, and you can see that's exactly what I did. This is the dot that I did, but I based it off of, okay, I've done some research and I've done this, and it's also based on what I want to do, right? I want to help women who are crafters, and now if a man comes and says, I want to get into your course, am I going to say no? No, he can more than welcome. It's not excluding him. I'm just targeting a specific point to start with, right? To start with. So then when I say, okay, well, I've found my target here, what would we say, 25, move this down a little bit. So let's just say that I found and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be right here. So now when they come through my course, they buy it, whatever it is, and I get more resources back. I now have more resources, and now I can go and I can either split this up and do 2 different sections, or I can start to replicate. And this actually just starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you start targeting more and more people. Okay, so you don't have to target everybody. In fact, you don't want to target everybody. You're going to run out of resources before you find the people. And that's the hardest part, is finding the people. And then once you do, and then you start expanding, going, okay, now I have an audience. Now they tell their friends and their family, and it just keeps spreading naturally. So you have to, when you first get started, you want to pinpoint your starting point. Now you could be wrong the first time. So you don't want to say, okay, well, I'm going to go put everything I possibly have into this, which you can, especially if it's your own time, but you have to understand that you could be wrong. There is still an element of unknown to targeting a market. Now, in another video, I'm going to show you some ways that you can help narrow that down. If you're like, hey, you know what? I have this product. I think it's pretty good for this, but I'd like to narrow it down more, right? So SimilarWeb is going to be one of the sources we use, and I've got a couple others that we're going to talk about. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and end this one, but hopefully that helped you see the importance of the dot, or narrowing your target market, and ways that you can focus that. So you can say, okay, this is my dot. This is my target market. Hey, so thanks for watching my video. And if you have more questions about how to find your dot, your target market, your target segment, and you're like, hey, I really don't know where to go. And if you're already doing training and you have resources, that's great. Hop into those resources. You're always welcome to join the Little Biz Resources Facebook group and ask questions. You can ask questions here on this video as well. Or you can, reach out through any of the methods that you can find me through. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I recommend the Facebook group. That's kind of the best way. You can go in there, you can tag me, and I can, do a little video for you, or I can do, you might prompt me to do another video like this, right? But if you're like, hey, I'm not really into Facebook, I'm more into YouTube, and that's where I found you, then just leave a comment and I will do the best I can to answer and or do a follow-up video. And in the meantime, feel free to subscribe to the channel and let me know if you have other questions besides that. Thanks.